Your buddy Mike Messier. I wasn't planning on doing any type of rant this morning. It's Friday, 11:25 a.m. Unfortunately, some news just came my way via the instant world that we live in on Twitter. I think it was my buddy Roger Dale Snyder from here in Jacksonville, Florida. First posted a photo of himself with none other than Meatloaf. And Roger's a great musician, singer, and a guy who knows music from the Jacksonville area and worldwide. And when Roger posted a photo with him and Meatloaf, um, he said that Meatloaf passed away on Thursday. And apparently, that news is just broken. That I guess was 3 a.m. I'm not sure if that was late night Thursday, Friday morning, which would be today, or if that was Wednesday night, Thursday morning, 3 a.m. But in any event, Meatloaf passes away. A lot of people are saying R.I.P. Eddie. I guess that was the character name. Very, very fun role in the Rocky Horror Picture Show film. Meatloaf really stole every scene that he was in. Uh, and of course, Bat Out of Hell for one generation, about, another second generation, the 1994, I think, or 93. Bat Out of Hell 2 came out. That also had some great songs on it. Really epic rock opera songs, songs. I do anything for love, but I won't do that. Just he had this way of having like this operatic quality, and I could be wrong, but I think Meatloaf might have been trained as an opera singer as well. So just really a phenomenal performer, and I believe I watched Meatloaf on the Bob Costas show a long time ago, a rerun of that. If you ever dig up, I believe it was an interview with Bob Costas, and the show was called Later with Bob Costas. So if you're looking for a really introspective moment with Meatloaf or an interview, I wonder if that's on YouTube somewhere. That show used to be great, by the way, and Costas was a great interviewer. Kind of a inspiration for my own show, Messier Mantra. Now that I think about it, never really thought about that before. Meatloaf also did great in Fight Club. If you ever saw the movie Fight Club, which a whole generation of people have watched the movie Fight Club, he had the male breasts in that one and was part of the Fight Club group. He started as one of the people in the self help group. I believe it was like the Edward Norton character was the tourist in those self-help groups, and there was Meatloaf was a part of that. And what else? I mean, I'm just tons of stuff he's done. I mean, I'm not the I don't know. Did he do something on The Apprentice? Was Meatloaf on one of the Apprentice shows? I believe he did some judging on some like judging talent shows over the years, in recent years. I could be wrong, but in any event, Meatloaf's just a great performer. I don't know if I have any personal narrative of Meatloaf or anything except that just a guy who, for a bigger guy like myself, kind of an inspiration that this guy can come into a room wearing a leather jacket. He can steal a fucking scene in a movie like Rocky Horror Picture Show where there's got Tim Curry and a beautiful Susan Sarandon, and that this guy can just take over a scene. Here we go. It's my buddy Shane McKenna here from Wrestling Fans chiming in. It's good to hear from you, Mikey. Thanks, Shane. I have been taping the AEW Apologist Rants for the Monty and the Pharaoh YouTube channel, and I did do a podcast with Old School, my buddy Angelo for Wrestling with the Future. We talked about Wahoo McDaniel with Kieran McDaniel last night, and the writer of Wahoo McDaniel's autobiography, a guy named John, very good guy. Ian, my buddy here in Florida, who was really coming to my backup with my Twitter rant yesterday. I'm going to talk about Louie in a second, Louie Anderson. Bro, I'm just realizing now, dude, you kind of look like you could have been related to Meatloaf. Well, yeah, and I'll take that as a compliment. Meatloaf, like I said, is a powerhouse performer. And like I said, he's an inspiration. If you look at myself, in the movie Anders Manor, which is on Mike Messier acting reel, and subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. I'm wearing a leather jacket in my scene with Kevin Nash. I'm wearing a bandana, and that's probably the most I look like a young Meatloaf in Rocky Horror. Good morning, Mike. And yeah, Meatloaf was on The Apprentice. Thanks, D-Back. Good to see you here again. I remember that. I remember Meatloaf being on The Apprentice, and it's interesting. I mean, at some point, I'm going to have to do a tribute video to the life and times of Donald Trump. Not that I'm a fan of his politics per se, but I mean, talk about a guy that's had a life and he's been involved with so many interesting people. But yeah, that Apprentice show, I mean, for all the people, myself included, that maybe have issues with Donald Trump's politics, you have to admit that at one point he was probably the #1 reality show star in the world. I'm talking about Trump now, and Meatloaf was a part of that. My friend Maria Kanellis, who you can see me interviewing here on Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, was also on The Apprentice. What is #1 thing you would not do for love? I would do anything for love, but I would not do that. But I won't do that. I remember that being a kind of a thing. People didn't really know if it was some type of sexual position or losing money or something. Like the song kind of had a mystery into it. What exactly wouldn't he do? As far as let's switch to Louie here, because I don't want to shortchange our buddy Louie Anderson. Louie Anderson was really in the you talk about the 1980s as when the comedy clubs in the United States of America, at least, and probably in Canada and other parts of the world, took off. Louie Anderson was a big part of that. Louie Anderson, I'm going to address Ian's comment here in a second, but Louie Anderson's role in stand-up comedy, the Rodney Dangerfield, if you ever watch the HBO Young Comedian specials on HBO, look those up on YouTube or whatever. The HBO Young Comedian specials, you'd see guys like a young Andrew Dice Clay, Bill Hicks. I'm not sure if Bill Hicks was a part of those Rodney shows, but I definitely know that Sam Kinison was. And Louie Anderson was so much different than some of the comedians at the time because Louie was more self-depreciating. He told a very funny joke about, that wars could be stopped if instead of dropping bombs, they dropped peanut M&Ms from the sky. And that if all the soldiers on both sides of the battle were having these free peanut M&Ms dropped from the airplanes, that they'd have to stop fighting and killing each other and fighting for territories because they'd have to eat the peanut M&Ms. And I mean, that's just kind of ingenious comedy because if you think about it, it's a safe joke. It's kind of a positive message. There's so much comedy, myself included, when I used to do stand-up that's very risque or vulgar and all that good stuff. But Louie just kind of hitting a basic core need that peanut M&Ms are like that's like the mother's milk that we're all craving. And couldn't the world just be a better place if we all just stopped and ate peanut M&Ms all day? And like I said, there's a lot of self-depreciating humor with Louie and his weight. I'm thinking now of the movie Coming to America, the original one. Was Louie in the sequel? I think he might have had a moment in the Coming to America thing that was on Netflix this past year, or Amazon Prime, I should say. Did you see that? Was Louie in that? That's genius comedy for sure. Yeah, I mean, and I'm just trying to think of, I'm thinking of another comedian, John Pinette, and I'm not sure if John Pinette passed away too, but John Pinette had this thing about the Chinese buffet. You go now, the Chinese buffet, and how being a fat guy at the Chinese buffet was a sure way of getting kicked out. Yeah, Louie was pretty damn funny. Louie was also on, he was the host of Family Feud for a couple of years, I believe, wasn't he? I mean, I think that show, Richard Dawson is probably the sentimental favorite for a whole generation of people. Richard Dawson really took the Family Feud to new levels. I'm not sure if Richard was the original host. I think he was. I could be wrong. But then you've had guys like Ray Combs was pretty good. Unfortunately, he passed away from suicide, I believe. At least that was what was reported. Ray Combs, a friend of wrestling, pro wrestling, at least WWE and WCW. And I think the Glow Girls were on Family Feud too, and with Ray Combs. And then who else? Louie Anderson was somewhere in the mix. I'm not sure if Louie came before or after Ray Combs, to be honest with you. I think it was one or the other, but I think Louie was on there for maybe 2 years, I want to guess. And then you have Steve Harvey. And so Louie is part of that heritage, the Family Feud heritage. And I thought he was a good host. I remember watching and I relate to these guys, to be honest with you, because I'm a bigger guy and I fluctuate. My weight goes up and down and so forth. And I remember Louie Anderson being, I think, on I want to say it's either Oprah Winfrey or Barbara Walters. I want to say an Oprah Winfrey interview where Oprah was interviewing Louie Anderson, and he was living on a lake, or like living near a lake, and he was just taking long walks and trying to lose some weight. And it's a tough thing, to be honest with you. A lot of people just don't fucking get it. If they're average shaped or thin, they don't understand that you can be very successful in life like these guys and still be heavy set. But to be honest with you, Meatloaf died at age 74. That's a pretty good age these days. You know what I mean? Like, you see people all the time that are dying younger than that. So, I mean, Meatloaf died. I'm not sure, what the cause of death was. I'm not too worried about that right now. I'm seeing all these tributes on Meatloaf. Louie, I think, was a bit younger. I'm going to look up Louie's age when he passed away. But in any event, what can you say? I mean, it's never good to die, but at some point, like Betty White died, I think on New Year's Eve, and some people were all upset about it. I wasn't upset. I said, look, the lady had a great life, 99 years old. Louie Anderson, Emmy-winning comedian, dies at 68 after battling lymphoma cancer. Sorry to hear that he had the lymphoma cancer. That's rough. But I mean, Betty White passes away at 99. I mean, that's a great life. Yes, Shane, you are correct. I just found that. Louie passed away at age 68. Iconic Emmy-winning comedian. It says Anderson broke through as a comedian in 1984 when he performed a set on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. From there, he performed a comedy special on Showtime in 1987. This is Louie Anderson. Made regular TV appearances on late-night shows and appeared in movies such as Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Coming to America in 1988. I'm trying to remember Louie in Ferris Bueller's Day Off right now, and I'm having a block. I don't remember Louie Anderson in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, if everyone remembers the scene. I remember the cartoon Life with Louie. I remember that, buddy. But I can't say that I watched it heavily. I mean, I think it was a fun one. Life with Louie was the name of the cartoon. The comic voiced a fictionalized version of his 8-year-old self, winning 2 daytime Emmys for performer in an animated program. How about that? The show ran from 95 to 98. In 96, he created and starred in The Louie Show, a short-lived sitcom on CBS that was canceled after 6 episodes. In 99, Louie was the first host for the 3rd revival of the hit syndicated game show Family Feud, leaving the show after 4 years in 2002. So, I mean, it seems like the mid-90s to the early 2000s was probably the peak of his career with all those projects. And for a guy that was pretty, physically big, and, admittedly, he wasn't in great health a lot. He was working his ass off, to be honest with you. He did reprise his role in Coming to America. I thought so. And he had a guest role in season 3 of the HBO Max original series Search Party. He had 2 sisters, Lisa and Shanna Anderson. It doesn't say anything about being married or kids or anything. Let's see. He gained acclaim for his performance in the FX original comedy series Baskets with Zach F. and that class. I can never say his name. So in any event, Louie Anderson. Now, when I think of Louie Anderson, I mean, I think of just a smiling face, that kind of like a John Candy in a sense. Like anytime you saw Louie Anderson, you really, brought a smile to your face. He just had to be there. You know what I mean? And just a guy that you always were happy to see. I was always happy to see Louie Anderson pop up in something. Now let's go back to this comment, and I want to ignore the comment here. Meatloaf made some of the greatest timeless music. Much of his music is immortal, and that's the greatest achievement someone could have, to be or have done something that will be immortalized. Hey, man, great tribute, buddy. Really like that, Ian. I'm going to leave that up there. I might use that as this thumbnail. As some of you folks who are watching these live Mike Messier videos, you might notice that if you go back to my channel later, I tend to save as the thumbnail like the most interesting comment or the most provoking comment. So some of you who make these comments, might see your name in the thumbnail. That gives you a thrill. And I always welcome the people that contribute to these live interactive rants. If you have anything you want to plug, don't try to sell us insurance or anything or some multi-level marketing scam. But you're welcome to promote yourself a little bit, and I'll give you a shout out. Just leave something in the comment. Speaking of multi-level marketing, just as an aside, I've been watching this video series. Started with YouTube with a 20-minute video, and then I found an Amazon Prime video, a web series about La Rue, like a woman's clothing company, La Rouche or something with a, what is it called? Lulu La or whatever the fuck. Lula Rue. There's a Lula Rue. I don't know if any Lula Rich is the name of the Amazon series. But have you guys seen this Lula Rich? And have you seen? I mean, I'm not a woman and I don't buy women's clothing, okay? But have you seen this Lula Rich thing? And just one of these things that I didn't know anything about it until about a week ago. But Lula Rich is an interesting web series. Let's see, buddy. Lula Rue, my girl, and my mom bought so much of that shit. Oh, jeez. Sorry. Had a little fault there. You got me laughing, buddy. So I killed the video. But Lula Rich, have your girl and your mom watch the show. I think I just finished episode 2, so I've got episode 3 and 4. I mean, multi-level marketing scams, folks. I don't know if any of you have fallen for this shit. I mean, I will admit that I've lived through a couple of experiences with like a phone company. I never signed up for Amway. I went into some fucking knife company, Cutco knives, and like learned how to sell knives, but I never actually did it. I did get hooked into some fucking phone company for a couple of minutes. It was just a lame experience, to be honest with you. I think here's the thing with multi-level marketing for me. I don't necessarily look down on it entirely because I think there's some psychology to it and like it could work. But I think what the Lulu Rich show does pretty efficiently is tell you that basically you have to get into these companies like right at the beginning, and you're just basically profiting off the stupidity of others. And then by the time that most of us get invited to be in one of these fucking companies, we're the sucker that's feeding into somebody else on the food chain. So by the time some asshole comes up to you in a fast food restaurant and asks you if you want to run your own business, you're just a sucker for everybody else. And that's typically what happens. Like if you're just living your life and someone comes up to you at a fast food restaurant or some other weird place that you're not expecting, and they just want to hit you up to be involved in a business, you know that it's multi-level marketing crap. And at this point, stay the fuck away from it. You know, there's a lot of ways to make money these days. You can sell things on eBay. You can do a lot of stuff. But multi-level marketing is not the way to go for the most part. My girl personally knows quite a few people that made lots of money off the Lularoe. And I think that's great, Ian. Good for them. I guess what I would ask is, you know, and you know, I don't know your friends or your female friends, but did they have those issues with like the smelly pants? Like, I guess that was a big thing, that some of the clothes were coming in and they were like soaked in water because I guess they were being stored outside. And there was just a quality control issue. And you know, and I think that's kind of cool about the Lula Rich documentary is that they do interview the actual couple that started this company. And I don't necessarily think they're bad people. I mean, just based on episode 1 and 2, I haven't watched the whole series yet, but I think that maybe too fast, too soon. And maybe their company just grew too quickly for their own good. And they trusted their own kids to run the business. And the kids weren't necessarily the sharpest tools in the box. And the kids weren't necessarily trained or equipped to run a business that big. And I think sometimes that's the downside of American capitalism, is that we have these things, you know, talk about Uber, Lyft. I mean, things that didn't exist 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, but once they come around, it's like Amazon Prime, you know, 15, 20 years ago, nobody was getting the Amazon Prime stuff, right? But these companies come along and they take off like rockets. And sometimes it's like, oh shit, are we even ready for this? And I don't know the answer. So just thoughts. Let's see. So I I got to ask you, Ian, if you want to answer this real quick. Does your girlfriend or your mom still have the LuLaRich clothes? Do they still have that stuff? Definitely a scam, though. There were issues of the clothes being of shitty quality, as the documentaries share, and also lots of clothes with fucked up print on them, i.e. pants or leggings where the print on them was either all cockeyed or cut off where it shouldn't be. Yeah, and on the show, Ian, they had clips of like comedians showing like a bee, like one of the prints on the LuLaRich pants had a bee like coming out of a suggestive part of a woman's anatomy, like just poorly designed and just, just not flattering to anyone. They do still have the clothes. Well, hey, look, they should wear them. And I don't know if your girl's trying to unload some of these clothes, we can have a big yard sale of LuLaRich at Ian's girlfriend's house. But in any event, folks, I don't know what to say. I got off on a tangent there. I'm not sure how I got there. This is the Meatloaf and the Louie Anderson tribute rant. I just want, if anyone else has any comments about Meatloaf and Louie, I mean, if I had to advise anyone, if you want to know more about Meatloaf, I'm going to look it up right now on YouTube just to see, is there any Meatloaf with Bob Costas? Because I just telling you, that was a great interview, if I'm remembering correctly, which I think I am. But Meatloaf on the Bob Costas Later show. I found Meatloaf on Larry King Now, Audrey Meadows on Bob Costas, John Candy on Bob Costas versus Vince McMahon. I'm not finding the episode that I was looking for, which is Later with Bob Costas with Meatloaf. But I'm telling you, I think that that's the interview I'm talking about. And I think that Meatloaf was on that show. So I'm just not seeing it right now. Maybe it's somewhere else in the wild world of the internet. We've got some more comments here. She has been unloading, laughing your ass off. I see Chris Elliott is on the Bob Costas show. I don't know why I'm putting over the Bob Costas show. I should just be putting over Messier Mantra, my own goddamn show. But in any event, there's a lot of things that are fun on the internet these days, folks, and I don't mind sharing other things that I've been watching just as a conversation piece. I'm trying to get more views and subscribers to Mike Messier, subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel, but I'm still a YouTube user myself. So I find myself watching a lot of stuff on YouTube. It's really a kind of a go-to thing. I kind of like the short, the shortness of some of these things. Let's see. Okay, so it seems like something about Bob Costas and Larry King. Interesting. I'm trying to just figure out what interview I saw. It looks like Meatloaf was on the Larry King show. It's a whole big long article, and I don't know. But basically, I'm trying to find that Meatloaf Bob Costas interview. Louie Anderson, if you want to know like the best of Meatloaf, I would probably just send you back to Bat Out of Hell, the first album, and probably Bat Out of Hell 2, Back Into Hell, I think it was called. There was also a third one. There was a third Bat Out of Hell, which really just seemed like a money grab, and it really didn't live up to the first two, to be honest with you, from my memory. Yeah, the two-part interview with Vince is really good. The first one I think was confrontational, and then the second one they did maybe a year later, and they were kind of buddy and all that about it. So yeah, Vince was good with Larry King, or with Bob Costas. As far as Louie Anderson goes, folks, probably like Shane mentioned that comedy show, oh, here we go. D-back. Thanks, buddy. Didn't mean to blow you off. Louie was the flower delivery guy in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Wow. I think, yeah, he was in there very briefly, just like a minute or so. Oh, okay. Thanks, guys. I didn't mean to scan over those comments. But as Shane said, life with Louie, I think coming to America, and I think if you just find I'm curious about this stand-up comedy special that Louie Anderson did. That sounds great. I'm going to have to dig that up from 1987. see if I can find the title of it. 1987 comedy special, Louie Anderson. Is that on fucking YouTube or anywhere else in the world? If it is, I'm going to have to watch that or listen to it as I do other things. Louie Anderson's stand-up 1988 just came up. So yeah, there's a video, Louie Anderson's stand-up 1988, 54 minutes and 16 seconds. Louie Anderson at the Guthrie just came up, and that's 54 minutes and 2 seconds. I'm gonna have to watch this stuff. Louie was just a great guy, man. He's just very funny. I mean, you think about that generation of comedians and comedians. There's so many, but you know, Louie, Bobcat Goldthwait, there was a guy named George Wallace at the time. I actually saw Bobcat and George Wallace perform together. George Wallace was a lot funnier than Bobcat. Bobcat did a lot of old jokes, and so on and so forth. Even Gilbert Gottfried, Judy Tenuta, Rita Rutner was kind of a personal favorite. So I could go on to a whole rant of 80s comedians, but I won't. I think I'll wrap this thing up, folks. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. If you've been missing out, you think, oh, Mike, where'd you go? Well, I have been doing some instant movie review videos. I taped some ECHL videos, the shorts. The best thing you can do to support this channel is just copy the URL and share the thing on your social media homepage. Feel free to share any of these videos on Twitter, YouTube, whatever the fuck, you know, Twitter, your Facebooks, tell a friend. But this has been the tribute to Louie Anderson and MEATLOAF, two great comedians. We touched on some other things, so I want to thank everybody who participated. Ian with his LuLaRoe insights, D-Back. Yes, he was in a ton of movies. I thought Louie was pretty damn funny. My buddy Shane. So everybody who came in, I want to thank you for coming in, and have a great Friday and get the whole weekend to fuck up. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.